Welcome back to March or Die TV. My name is Cainan, also known as Tumor. Now that's a silly name, really, isn't it? So why am I called Tumor? Because way back when I was a young strapping lad, I decided to go march in a little drum and bugle corps from Sacramento, California, called the Freelancers. And there was a guy there. That guy was called Paul. And there was also Mike. And there was another Mike. There were several Mikes, actually. Anyway, between the lot of that evil little cabal of instructors and designers, they thought it would be funny to put me in marching spot number B9, and a nickname was born. So, cheers, fellas. Really appreciate it. Anyway, if you if you were expecting Justin, also known as the Stress Master, again, he is away this week. So we'll be looking to get back with Justin in the next week or two and get some more episodes of the podcast up. For now, you're stuck with me. And so last episode I did was my all-time favorite show. I'm going to kind of carry on with that theme now, but what I'm going to do this time is slightly different, and that is my all-time top 5 non-finalist corps. Now, when I say non-finalist, so there's a little bit of a criteria here, and that criteria is quite simple, is that these corps must have attended and competed at the Drum Corps International World Championships. This does unfortunately mean that DCA, and for the most part, international corps are unfortunately excluded in this case, unless those corps did in fact march in DCI. I could do an entire different episode for those. In fact, I am working on an episode right now about Drum Corps Europe. So for those of you who don't know, I marched in the Freelancers from 1987 to 1992, and I knocked about the activity doing this, that, and the other thing. I mean, I've written, I've taught, I've judged, I've done all sorts of crazy stuff in the activity, and then in 2001 I moved to the UK, and little did I know the place that I moved to, and it was a place that at one point back in the 80s actually had 5 competing drum corps in just this one town. So it's always been a little bit of a hotbed for the drum corps activity over here. Anyway, fast forward a few years, and I'm sat out in my, as they call it here, the back garden or the backyard, and I heard noises off in the distance that could only possibly be one thing, and that was a drum corps practicing. So I got in my car and I drove over to the park, and sure enough, I found the Kids Grove Scouts rehearsing, and I was just instantly hooked. And I ended up going back at the ripe young age of 49 in 2016. I went back and decided to, 46 actually, 46, sorry. I went back to march drum corps again, and I marched with Kids Grove from 2016 through 2019. So I am going to be doing a whole episode on Drum Corps Europe, and also I'm going to be doing an episode based off of comments on the last video, where I'm going to react to one commenter's favorite drum corps show of all time. Which is the 1995 Blue Devils, which happens to be one of my favorite shows as well. Anyway, so before we get started with the actual shows, I would ask you one little tiny favor, and that is that if you do like what we do and you do think that we're worthy of it, I would be great, and we really appreciate it if somewhere down here you'll find the like and subscribe button. If you could hit like, subscribe, and ring the little bell. And what that does is an absolute ton for us. Takes you no time at all, costs you absolutely nothing, but it absolutely helps us out a ton. And if you ring the bell, it lets you know when we release content. So as we go through the summer, we're going to be doing a lot more. We're also going to be looking to probably jump onto the WGI bandwagon a little bit over the next few weeks. Obviously, the WGI season's kicking off here shortly. So yeah, lots of stuff to talk about. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to now look at my all-time top 5 non-finalist corps. So who are those corps? Well, number 5 is the 2013 Troopers. 2013 Troopers is a corps that, quite frankly, and I don't say this very often because I could really give a toss about the judges, but in this one case, I think that this was a corps that was absolutely ripped off of a finalist spot. They came in 13th that year. with a really quite a high 13th place score. So I think it was around 86 or 87, something like that. But anyway, yeah. So that's my number 5 favorite corps. Number 2 is the 1992 Marauders Drum and Bugle Corps, which is obviously a corps that's long since folded, that probably most people have never heard of. They were a corps from Kelso, Washington. Never made finals in their history, but always put out entertaining shows. Number 3 is going to be a bit of a curveball, and that is 1999 Pioneer. I was actually on the fence with Pioneer. I was looking at either the 1999 Pioneer or I believe it was 1995, I think it was, when they actually won Division 2. But yeah, so 1999 is the one I went with. Number 2 is the 1991 Velvet Knights, and number 1 is not a 1990s corps. Just so you know, I don't live just in the 1990s, but I'm going to make you wait until the end to see who that is. So without further ado, here we go. Right, so we're going to start with the 2013 Troopers, and I'm not going to play the whole shows, by the way. I'm just going to play snippets of each. So 2013, the corps came in 13th place with a score of 86.05. That's an exceptionally high score for 13th place. The show was entitled The Magnificent 11. The opener was Fanfare for the 11th by Robert W. Smith. On the podcast, we actually did a tribute to Robert W. Smith a few weeks back. Sadly, we lost Robert last year. If you don't know much about Robert W. Smith, I strongly suggest that you educate yourself. The man had an indelible mark on the activity. You go onto the DCX Museum webpage and you just go click the credits section. The guy's got 5 pages. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, so Fanfare for the 11th by Robert W. Smith. Theme from the Magnificent 7 by Elmer Bernstein. John Dunbar's theme from Dances with Wolves. And then Tribal Spirits was the percussion feature by Paul Rennick, followed by Battle Hymn of the Republic, which is specifically the piece that we're going to look at. So without further ado. Absolute classic. Anytime Troopers does a sunburst like this, I'm hooked. You got me. Tell she's trying to keep them tears in. So 2013 Troopers. Yeah, absolutely loved the show. It was a definite step up for the Troopers as far as being competitive. They were 18th the year before, 14th before that, 15th the year before that. Obviously, the Corps made finals in 2009 for the first time in 22 years, I think it was. So they made the finals 2009. Fell back down quite a bit, quite frankly. And yeah, so 13th place. And then, of course, obviously, we know kind of what happened. The pandemic happened. And then Voracious, the 2022 Troopers with that amazing show. So yeah, so I think that I suspect Troopers probably would have made finals in 2020, 2021, something like that, had the pandemic not happened. I would argue that 2021, obviously it wasn't a scored year, but I would argue that was very possibly a finalist core. So, but I do think that 2013 really kind of set the stage for that. So yeah, so 2013 Troopers is number 5 on my list. So next up is the 1992 Marauders. Um, so the Marauders were a drum corps from Longview, Kelso, Washington. They had a relatively short run, with their first year being in 1984, where they placed 43rd. And they finished up in 1994. But as far as competitively is concerned, I first came across the Marauders in 1987, where my corps, the Freelancers, we traded blows with them literally all summer long. And yeah, so 1991 and 1992, even though you look at some of the previous placements, there was a couple of placements higher. I'd say that 91 and 92 were probably the apex of the Corps' competitiveness, if you will. And they did, over those 2 seasons, they actually did a 2-year show around pirates. So both shows called Adventures on the High Seas. 1992, they came in 17th place with a score of 76.7, and the show included Sea Fanfare from Victory at Sea, Overture to Captain Blood, The Siren's Call, The Storm, Fantasia on Dead Man's Chest, and The Revelations. So without further ado, we'll give you a little bit of a taste of the Marauders, and I'll tell you why I liked them.
On the field, from Longview, Washington, Drum Corps International is proud to present the Marauders.
Sorry, old videos were compressed like this. You're going to have to just live with it. If I make it bigger, then you lose the Corps. So,
are the judges ready? Drum Major Lane Anthony, is your corps ready?
Oop, don't trip on your way up. That'd be bad.
Marauders, you may take the field for competition.
Yeah, it was super windy that year as well. It was also 1992 DCI finals. It was really, really cold as well. I think it was highs in like the low 60s in the middle of August. It was crazy, but you got to love the upper Midwest in an outdoor stadium. Nice big sound. I also like, if you look at the color guard, they're coming in with pirate ship sails for flags. It's just so visually effective. I always thought it was cool how they dropped the Jolly Rogers right there at the end. That was cool. That was really cool. So 1992 Marauders, the keenly observant of you as far as drum corps historians will note that yes, the second piece was the same piece that they played the year before, and that was a really common thing back in those days. I mean, 88 and 89 Freelancers, we basically played the same show. 88, 89 Vanguard, basically the same show. Yeah, it was really, really common for chorus to play the same show for really 2 years in a row. Not at all surprising to see the fanfare from Victory at Sea played twice. So why did I like the Marauders? Is it, as far as a competitive show, is it great? Entertaining, yes. It's mainly because I liked the drum corps. 1992, Marauders were at a lot of the same shows that we had in Freelancers. And also, I believe there was several times during that tour in 1992, we actually shared housing sites with the corps as well. So the two drum corps, we grew quite close, and just this is a particular corps that I've got quite a bit of fondness for, and it's one that I miss. So yeah, 1992 Marauders, you make the list. Right then. So next up will be the 1999 Pioneer. And so 1999 Pioneer was the second highest the Corps ever placed, with a score, or as far as placement is concerned, 17th place at the 1999 DCI semifinals. And it's actually only one of two times that the Corps actually made semifinals when semifinals was a top 17. Obviously, it's top 25 now. So in regards to it wasn't their highest placed show. That would have been the next year, 2000. But quite frankly, I just find Brigadoon to be about as exciting as watching paint dry. It was definitely a better drum corps as far as the product that was put on the field in 2000. But like I said, I find Brigadoon about as exciting as watching paint dry. So 1999, the Corps played Flute Concerto Movement Number 3 by Christopher Rouse, The Girl I Left Behind from Irish Suite, Mags, I can't even pronounce that. The Level Plane. The title is in Gaelic, and I don't speak Gaelic. So, speaking of Gaelic and Gaelic type languages, so I live in the north of England, and not too far from me, kind of that way, about a half an hour, is Wales. And I didn't realize until I moved here that they speak a completely different language in Welsh. And if you ever want to see a language that will absolutely blow your mind, check out Welsh. Just trust me on this one. So anyway, the show was titled Greensleeves. It was primarily Irish music, and what we're going to look at is the closer, the drum feature and the closer, I believe, which was of course Greensleeves. So 1999 Pioneer, and make it big, and here we go. Nice work of the guard. And, other things as well to look at. I mean, look at the feet. They've got good feet. This was that time. It was that weird time as well where Corps started experimenting with khaki pants for some reason. Big sound for a relatively small corps. Nice legato section here. Very, very solid battery with this core as well. Got plates. Battery's hauling ass there.
Pioneer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, under the direction.
So, was this the greatest show of all time? No, of course it wasn't. However, I just liked the show. I liked the fact that Pioneer was a core that knew who they were, knew what their identity was. But unfortunately, I think that was also their downfall. A lot of people say that the downfall of Pioneer was one guy. It takes more than one guy. I mean, I think that the biggest problem with Pioneer, outside of, well, the problem that every drum corps has, which seems to be finances, is they just dug their heels in so much on the whole Irish thing, you know. And you know what? I can see on the one hand the argument would be, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, and I think that the perfect counter argument for that would be, I hate to say it, the Madison Scouts. The Madison Scouts stylistically have completely lost their way. They've tried on a couple of occasions to come back to that whole badass Madison Scouts thing, but it just hasn't worked up until now. So that's a core that I would love nothing more, just for the record, I would love nothing more than to eat my words and see Madison Scouts in finals this year. That would make me over the moon. I marched in the Kids Grove Scouts, for crying out loud. I know loads of people that marched in the Madison Scouts. The Kids Grove Scouts and the Madison Scouts had a very, very close relationship. So I'm not bagging on the core by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that the point I'm trying to make is that when they decided to integrate genders into the core, I think that they just went completely away from what made the Scouts, and that is not, for the record, that is nothing to do with physical gender. It has nothing to do with anatomy or anything like that. I'm just talking stylistically. It's like they decided, let's just do something completely different, and they just completely lost themselves as the Madison Scouts. To that end, Pioneer, I would say, too steadfastly, stubbornly stuck to that whole Irish thing. And you know what? It really, really shows as far as where they sat competitively. I mean, let's have a look at the screen again here. So you look here. So 1999, 17th place. 2000, 16th place. We got 18th, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 23rd, 23rd, 22nd, 20th, 21st, 23rd, 27th, 27th, 28th, 30th. I mean, at every one of these shows, Celtic Dragons, Irish on Broadway, the story of Joan of Arc, it's just Irish to a fault. And I think that their desire not to embrace modern drum corps ultimately killed them. So, but for a few glorious years, I did think this was a core that was going someplace. And I think that you watch your 1999, your 2000 shows, you could quite easily sit through the entire show and be entertained for the entire show. So for that reason, the 1999 Pioneer makes my list. Right, now next up is the 1991 Velvet Knights Drum and Bugle Corps. So VK and freelancers, as many know, have a very, very long history. But I think you'll find that very few people in the freelancers didn't like the Velvet Knights and vice versa, even though we may say otherwise. Yeah, so this particular show was VK doing Motown. And I'm just trying to pull up their page on the DCX page here, because Wikipedia, for some reason, decided to just get rid of all cores off of Wikipedia that weren't an active drum corps for some reason. I don't know why. I find it pretty poor, actually. So anyway, so 1991 Velvet Nights. It was called A Night at the Apollo, spelled Knight, and it included music of I Can't Turn You Loose, RESPECT, I Feel Good, Unchained Melody, My Girl, and of course the ending. 14th place with a score of 83.3. I think it might have been a little bit harsh on the score there. I think there's parts of the show that I see a finalist drum corps. I do recall this particular show when they first came out in early season. They were marching it very much as this is a straight ahead drum corps show, and it just absolutely bombed. And then throughout the season, they started adding bits into the show. The thing that you'll notice visually is very, very definitely missing is the iconic Velvet Nights Converse. So, but anyway, without further ado, make it big, as I say all the time. We'll have a look at a few minutes of the 1991 Velvet Nights.
Anaheim, California. Drum Corps International presents the Velvet Nights. Are the judges ready? Drum Major Jeff Shimamoto, is your corps ready?
I love it.
Yeah! Is the corps ready? Yeah! Is the corps ready? You know it, brother!
Velvet Knights, you may enter the field for competition.
They may not look like it, but they're still very, very definitely the Velvet Knights. So 1991 Velvet Nights. Yeah, it was a tough year for VK that year, because they had very definitely been on a run of success prior to that. Prior to that, let's just change the screen here for you. So prior to that, you could see 1991 14th place, but prior to that, we had 10th, 11th, 8th, 7th, 12th, 11th, 12th. So them dropping out in 1991 was quite a big deal. Why did they drop out? I think that it was, I think the show itself, the concept wasn't bad. I mean, if a core is gonna do Motown, back then, man, it may as well have been VK. Cut loose, let rip. But it was very pedestrian, the actual design of the show. Outside of that as well, I hate to say it, but there was a lot, and I mean a lot of visual mistakes in that show. Just in that one clip there, for instance, I counted 5 people out of step. So you're never, ever, ever gonna make finals if that's the case. But not to let that take away from the enjoyment of the show, though. I mean, it was a very enjoyable show to watch. Unfortunately, that video doesn't really do it justice. Yeah, when they did RASPCT and I Feel Good, I mean, it was just a riot musically. And then My Girl as well was absolutely lovely. But obviously, they came roaring back in 1992 with the 10th place finish. And I remember, so in 1991, my core, we made finals. VK did, and we went through so like for instance, 1990, we missed, they made it. 1991, we made it, they missed. So 1992, we were kind of like, I don't know, we might be screwed here. But we didn't quite know what to expect of VK because, I mean, 1991 was a really down year. They came back in 1992 with obviously probably the funniest drum corps show ever, with the Magical Mystery Tour Part 3, which was unfortunately their last time in finals as well. So tough time for the corps, tough time for a lot of corps back then. We lost a lot of drum corps in the early to mid 90s. And unfortunately, we lost my corps, the freelancers, after the 1994 season. VK carried on for another couple of years. There was a reincarnation of VK later on, but I don't think anybody would mistake them for being the same drum corps. So that is the 1991 Velvet Nights. Right, that leads me on to my final and all-time favorite non-finalist drum corps. Now, I mean, the easy thing for me to do is just pick a bunch of 13th place scores, but that's not what I'm going for. I'm not going for a score. I'm going to which shows I actually liked, or which shows did I connect with, or which shows did I have some sort of like an emotional attachment to, or something along those lines. So for me, the all-time favorite non-finalist drum corps, and I know that a lot of people seem to think that I live in the 1990s. Well, this one may surprise you. It is, in fact, 2023 Genesis. Absolutely loved Symbiosis. 2023 Genesis. We came in 21st place, which I thought was quite harsh, if I'm honest with you, with a 78.775. The show included Firebird Suite, Hide and Seek by Imogen Heap, which is one of my all-time favorite pieces of just music in general. Asphalt Cocktail, and then some original music at the end of the show. So I might let this one go on a little bit longer. And of course, you cannot watch 2023 Genesis without watching the pre-show. So for those who don't know or didn't see the show, they absolutely embraced electronics in this show. They embraced so I believe correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure there'll be some Genesis folks watching. I believe the concept of the show is that if AI invented a drum and bugle corps show. So without further ado, I give you make it big, the 2023 Genesis. And away we go. Ironically enough, by the way, I just got to point out, Mike Eustace was the center snare at Freelancers in 1991 and 92. Absolutely top bloke. So if he's watching, hey, Mike.
We are Genesis from Austin, Texas, where the weather today is a high of 112 degrees with humidity from the depths of hell.
Hey Chat Phoenix, what time is the show today?
According to your calendar, and Dan Atchison, the DCI World Championships event will begin, only when Tony DiCarlo says it will begin.
Hey, Chad Phoenix, tell me a good joke.
Okay, here is a good one. What is the difference between a top 12 drum corps and a bottom 12 drum corps? It doesn't matter. The Blue Devils are most likely going to win anyway.
Called it.
Hey Chat Phoenix, who are the drum majors for Genesis?
The drum majors for Genesis are Mason Gould, Ariella Callie, Callie Christ, and the one, the only, Antonio Fox. Good evening, Drum Corps fans. Welcome to the 2023 DCI World Championships. I am Chat Phoenix, your AI virtual assistant and newest performer for Genesis. We are so glad you could join us this evening on our journey together, as we take the steps through the creation of a great drum corps show. Of course, that means we will be touching on everyone's favorite drum corps subject, electronics. Step 1. The opener. We will start the show with a familiar favorite that will be the melodic thread throughout.
One thing I think is pretty cool as well is obviously this is an AI-based show. It's electronics. It's all about technology, but the opening set is a strand of DNA. I just think that's really, really clever.
The entire production and is designed to get the audience excited. Performing our 2023 production, Symbiosis, Drum Corps International is proud to present Genesis.
These guys quietly had quite a decent horn line as well. In reviewing this for this video, it's the first time I noticed the RGB lighting as well on the front ensemble. But yeah, so I'm not playing the whole show. If you can go on to the old interwebs and find it yourself, I'm sure. Um, I think that this demonstrates something, though, and it's something that I've said for a long time now. I like the 1991 Velvet Nights. I think it's a really fun, entertaining show. It came in 14th place. 2023 Genesis came in 21st place. Watch those two shows back to back and tell me how far this activity has come. Yes, we have less cores, but you know what? The cores we have are far better. Far better. This drum core right here. Sorry, I'm pointing at another screen here. Uh, this drum core right down there, wherever they are, there they are. That drum core makes finals in my day, and makes finals easily. Easily. The level of talent and the level of production and the level of show design that is out on the field right now is just unbelievably high. And anybody who says otherwise is either blind, deaf, or they're just being ignorant. So that's the only thing I can think. So, Symbiosis, great show, absolutely love it. And this is a drum corps, though, that I think it bears watching. They've come out with some pretty on the edge, mind you, but they've come out with some pretty challenging shows. Challenging the normal convention of things. They're a corps that's not afraid to take risks. By all accounts, their members seem to enjoy marching there. I know that they have a pretty high retention rate, and if they can keep their kids, I think that Genesis is definitely a corps that bears watching. So with that. That is it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, like I said, if you think I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, or if you think I'm a complete moron and a blithering idiot, drop us a comment below. Let us know what you think. I'd also be interested to hear your top 5 non-finalist corps. Also, if you have any ideas for episodes that you'd like to see that that we could potentially have a go at, again, drop it in a comment. While you're down there dropping a comment, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and also check out our merchandise store, as well as we do also have tiered memberships if you fancy taking it a step further and supporting us that way. So with that, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget, march on.